Hello, hello, and welcome to turn 10 of City of Cards. No, unless you want digital card tricks, I'm incapable of providing for that request. Welcome to turn 10 of this fabulous game set in Boston. I know we have a couple of new faces among our audience and our VOD watchers that will catch up watching this stream, watching this turn. They are probably going to see many a thing that may confuse or not be quite familiar with. My suggestion would be, don't worry about it. It will come with time. If anything, the thing you gotta focus on is the RP and the narrative. Don't worry about the mechanics, because these players have had most of them have had the advantage of having played 2 years worth of this homebrew set even before it's reached its final form. So yeah. But anyway, that's a little bit of a side tangent. How are we all doing? Oh, this turn has been high on my anticipation. Whew. I apologize for the delay. I hope the music is going to maintain itself, as was mentioned in the chat. I think the SI has decided to mess with the mixer. For whatever reason, I had to manually add the music audio to each individual stream scene. So yeah. What has been going on in the world of Boston, World of Darkness? Let us check off any technical issues we had going into this and get into this properly. Well, there's been a shitload of negotiations, because as the folks here who are the veterans will know, and those who have been nosy enough to look at the advisory bill channel, will know that the current City Congress bill on the floor that will be debated on in only a week's time is the sheriff query. Whether or not Boston is to reinstate its sheriff. For those who don't know, during Prince King's rule, his mad praxis, the sheriff came under, well, the sheriffs that they did have all resulted in the same fate of assassination. Be it via the barely put together Anarch movement, or the Crimson Tide of the Sabbat, or even the KOL who now rule in these present nights. And in response, King decided to wholly ascribe is the word I think I'm looking for, the responsibility of sheriffs to his personal blood-bonded coterie known as the Knights. That has had a lingering effect into the new praxis, although the Knights don't officially have the full power of sheriff in the new praxis. They still perhaps act as if they do in some regards. A sheriff has not been reinstated, and now after 10 years and a half, particular parties, I'm looking at the redcoats here, and the Gangrel Primogen Delson Coates, have pushed to make that query come into the light. So the Prince is asking both her Primogen Council and her City Congress which direction they should go. Should they not have a sheriff, or should they have a sheriff once more? And that is what has caused so much of the RP to be focused on I don't know if you can hear the doggos in the background. They are being quite loud. So I apologize for that. But yes, that is what has occupied most of the RP. And a lot of the decisions the factions have made this turn have been around that. On top of that, on top of the advisory bill being discussed and negotiated on, we have new characters who have been introduced. 2 new characters who have been by 2 new players. We have, oh gosh, one of the names I know I'm going to butcher, but one is simple enough. Stephen Tan, a Malkavian who has joined the Gemini League, our very first player-controlled seer who has access to premonition. They have came all the way, let me see how quickly I can find it on this map. They have came all the way, oh no, gosh, the controls of this map can be a wee bit finicky when jumping around. They've came all the way from Greece. There's nothing here on Greece. They have came all the way from Greece to assist at the Winthrop House, which is of course a library. One of the very many libraries around the world, from Camellia, I think it's Camellia Nielsen. I think that's her name. That's the quite major meta character. She has came to perform an assistance at the house, which is of course currently under the care of Dr. Isabella. And the other new player we have is with the Custodians, who is a Tremere. Oh my gosh, I've already failed in this opening dialogue, because whilst we have a new character called Chimson, I should have checked how to pronounce this. We'll just go with his first name, Chimson. I'm not going to try and butcher the surnames. Who has joined the Custodians. In fact, I think we've come to the conclusion in their out of character chat that Chimson is one of the founding members of the Custodians, who is a Tremere who didn't quite like how Prince King treated the Tremeres who joined the Kindred of Liberty in their overthrow of that praxis, but then wasn't happy with the rewards, so was part of the Custodians. But I've already messed up, because there's not just 2 new players who've created characters. There is another player who has joined the Custodians in the middle of creating a character. It's looking very fun. I'm very excited for the perhaps Gangrel, I think is what they have committed to. We haven't got a name yet, but the ideas are brewing. As well, though, a knight. A knight has joined our party on the return of Silas's yacht, when Silas took over and came back with a squire, a thin blood nonetheless. Sarah Sinclair, I think is how you pronounce her name. And I won't go too deeply into their background, but I am very much looking forward to their presence in this city and how it unfolds. A new squire indeed. I'm going to have a look at the chat now that I've got my streamer hat on. I mean, the Arthurian... Look, the Arthurian, although perhaps not many people refer to them, maybe the other moniker he went by, not personally went by, but the Mad King, had a unique way of ruling, didn't he? Doggo Cam when? If they could stay in front of a camera, I think a Doggo Cam would be perfect, but they run about the house. They are not one for staying put. So, enough of my ranting and rambling. I do welcome, I will say again, I do welcome all the new players that have joined this past week, because it was only a week ago when I happened to respond to someone looking for a play-by post on a Blank Body server. I do welcome you all, even if you've not came to the conclusion which faction it is you want to join. Again, this stream is going to have a couple of mechanical shenanigans of a homebrew of Blades in the Dark. We have adapted and made use of and expanded upon in order to simulate every month faction actions. The idea is that the mechanical game, as we refer to it, of Boston informs the narrative game of RP on the Discord, and then the narrative RP informs the mechanical game. The mechanical game provides stakes, context, and consequences, while the narrative RP provides emotional stakes and emotional context and narrative storytelling context to what's going on, and also gives like purpose and reason for why these little pins on this map even matter, and why my dice rolls are ever feared. Speaking of dice rolls, let me click a button and find out which of our lovely factions are going to go first. Well, the Redcoats are rolling a number 2 to begin, which means they will be probably lower down on our initiative list. We have the Patriots barely ahead of them as a number 3. Barely ahead of them as a number 3. I'm going to get the group out because I know that is who is next in that order of list. Again, barely ahead of the Patriots. At number 4, tying with the Patriots, are the Custodians at number 3. So we will have a little roll off to see who of those two go first in that little tiny bracket. We have the Knights steaming ahead at number 10. Emmer Vallis of the Knights asked me to roll well for the in the initiative of the Knights, and I give you the highest number you could have possibly rolled with a D10, a 10. The Gemini League also at a number 1, which means they will have to roll off against the Redcoats for the most sacred place of last place. Speaking, of course, we have the Boston Camarilla, the Kindred NPC faction, and the government of Boston. We have First Light, the governmental sponsored Second Inquisition, and of course we have the Society of Saint Leopold, the church that stalk the streets of Boston, but do not yet own a place on the map that they could claim as their own, because, and not for lack of trying, that's for sure. Goddamn Custodians, Patriots have gotten in the way of that, and the Knights, Redcoats, the group, gotten in the way of the governmental First Light trying to get a hold of. Let's see what order they're going in. The Boston Camarilla rolled a 4. First Light rolled a 7. Society of St. Leopold rolled a 9. So that's our wee order. Alright, Patriots and Custodians. Left is the Patriots, Custodians is the right. I am going to roll 2 D10s. Left is the Patriots, right is the Custodians. Whoever roll high, they rolled 9 each. We're going to have to roll that again. 8 and a 9. Alright, so the Patriots go after the Custodians. Redcoats on the left. Gemini League on the right. Both rolling 1. What is it with you guys? Come on. 6 and a 2. So the Gemini League are ahead of the Redcoats. And voila. Here we have our order for turn 10. Yeah, you specifically asked his for my luck when rolling this, and I have provided it to you, the Knights, which is quite fitting, because at the start of every one of our turns, we begin with assists. And by golly, giddy ant, have you guys been assisting one another? For the new folks, this little map over here, this spider web of colors, is how, on the map, is how you can determine the status level between factions, measured between a scale of -4 all the way up to +4. 4 being 3 and 4, signifying allyship, such as the Patriots and the Custodians here, and the Gemini League and the Boston Camarilla. -2 and -3 would be considered rivals, and -4 would be considered active conflict, where the two factions actively are competing against each other, in which special circumstances occur. Yeah, you're all besties. You're all best friends. Perhaps the most cooperation I have seen amongst the kindred in this game. That has been the level of negotiations that have been involved here. Yeah, so looking at the top of the list, the group have been doing plenty of assists, which makes sense because recently they've acquired Hancock Tower, which means not only when they transfer, they do an assist in the form of giving a coin to another faction, do they give an additional coin, but they also increase the status by 2. So they are making use of this to not... Usually what happens is when a faction performs an assist action to another faction, they provide a coin, or they can choose to add 1 die to one of the rolls that factions make this turn. And in doing so, the status between those factions increase by 1. But for the group and their domain, because some of the domains, every one of the domains has a little red flag over the top of it, provide a mechanical bonus for possession, for control of that domain. Because of the Hancock Tower, the group's assists are giving them an additional status, so they're increasing status by 2. And the group are providing the redcoats with 2 coin, so it's going up all the way from 1 to 3. And now they are considered allies. So the group lose 1 coin, but because Hancock Tower gives them an additional free coin, it doubles that coin into 2 coin for the redcoats. So now the redcoats have 2 coin to call their own. But that is not all who the group are assisting. For the group are also assisting the Gemini League, making them go from 1 to 2 to 3 and becoming allies. They are not doing a coin assist. However, they are doing providing them with 1 die to one of their actions this turn. So we'll see that. We will see that later. And now we move on to the next in the list, who are the Knights. For the Knights are not being left behind by the group. They are also providing the Gemini League not 1 assist, but 2. So their first assist brings them up from 1 to 2, and that is a +1 die. But their second assist this turn is providing them with +1 coin, which brings them up to 3. Oh, did I? Let me check faction sheets. Did I pull away the wrong coin from the wrong faction sheet when I gave the coin from the group? No, I didn't. I was good. I was good. So, 1 coin going from the Knights to the Gemini League. Indeed, the Gemini League. Boy, are the Gemini League getting friendly with the other kindred factions. They are making a hay of it this turn. One could say their vote was of particular value to many parties in Boston, and it's always good to be good indeed. especially when your votes are highly valued by particular groups and particular knights. But that is not all. We have one more assists this turn. Assists. Assists is a weird word, a weird plural to say. Assistance. Assistance being acted upon for the Boston Camarilla is providing an assist to the Patriots. An interesting state of affairs. The Boston Camarilla providing +1 die to the Patriots, who no longer are. They were once a anarch faction all the way out into Worcester. I know I'm not pronouncing that right, but the correct pronunciation has fled from my brain. But now, of course, there are no anarchs in Boston. Boston is purely a Camarilla city. For in 2014, Prince Iverson was able to negotiate with the leader of the Patriots / the Anarchs in Worcester at the time and convinced them to turn their colours. And under absolutely their benefit and for their upholding of security, to join the Boston Camarilla and become Camarilla citizens, and not under the threat of, if you did not accept this, we would come and crush you. So yes, there are no anarchs in Boston. We will ignore the anarch sympathies of the Patriots and the group at the top of that ethos scale. We'll completely ignore that, for there are no anarchs in Boston. But yes, the Boston Camarilla is providing the Patriots this turn with a +1 die assist, thus improving their status from 0 to 1. And then that means we move on to the Knights, seeing as we have done the assists this action, and there are no trades occurring because the custodians were already allies with the Patriots. Oh, no, there is a trade. The Boston Camarilla is sending 3 heat. That was what it was called in the old system. 3 contempt to the Knights. I nearly forgot. There we go. That has given them 3 contempt, because one of the benefit of having a green line between factions is that you are able to freely trade rep, XP, coin, and contempt. So 3 contempt moved between the Boston Camarilla and the Knights. And that might give you a peek as to why, maybe, perhaps, the Boston Camarilla performed an assist to the Patriots. Perhaps. Now, we are going then to the Knights, who've just performed 2 assists. There's not much more for them to do, other than for me to give them their XP, give them their coin, and remove them their -1 contempt from the passives that they get, and to read out their lovely narrative that they have provided me. Silas has taken the order and is not allowing his momentum to dwindle. You could see him visit every other faction this last month, lobbying and dealing in efforts to sway the upcoming Congress bill in favor of the Knights, in favor of Ney. A businessman and a winning smile and an undeniable charisma, matched with a youthful energy that betrays his physicality. The negotiation table is his battleground. Pacts are made, deals are signed in ink, but can they stand up to blood? Even the Ivory Tower sees a personal visit from Silas and his entourage as he works tirelessly throughout the month to make good on every promise and earn the favour as many as possible. Knights are seen all over Boston this month, their blazingly coloured their blazingly obvious livery upon the streets and cars, signaling them offering aid to all sorts of causes. But there's an especially favored group by them, the Gemini League. With Silas's return, he also brings various assets back to the Order in the form of a CapSec corporate security. His officially listed as an advisor for a new satellite office being established in Chelsea. And soon enough, many businesses across Boston may soon see additional protection against crimes immortal and immoral offered by the Knights. It is crazy with what the Cam will aid with us. Indeed, it is crazy what the Cam will aid with you, Kazuma, player of the Patriots. The Ivory Tower really went, this one's not on us. Yeah, well, maybe. We'll see. We'll see what happens. For the first action, as you all know, was an assist towards the Patriots, providing to the Gemini League, providing them with 1 dice and 1 status. Their second action is to assist the Gemini League, providing them with 1 coin. And I believe that is all their actions done. So that was a quick turn. Not many dice needed to be rolled. So we move on to everyone's favorite part of the turn, entanglements. So, for the newer players, how this works is Contempt is essentially the kindred civilians, the kindred oh gosh, my dyslexia is preventing me from using the word. Kindred citizenry. Ooh, we're going to ditch that attempt. The kindred local population that are not subscribed to one of these coteries. The Contempt basically measures what their opinion is of the respective factions, and thus influences how dire the entanglements of the month are for the faction in question. The higher one's Contempt, the more severe the entanglements are. And entanglements are, of course, supposed to reflect the consequences of the actions that a faction may take, the consequences of random events, and maybe the responses other elements of the city have to their actions. So, they are possessing 4 Contempt. They are in the 4/5 Contempt bracket, the voteless, the unaligned. Well, technically, every kindred is represented by their primogen. And if you're not represented by a primogen, you're represented by Delson Coates, the Gangrel primogen, who is shoveled in with the responsibility of your representation. Not that he perhaps does a great job of it, but that's another question. Right, where are we? We're on entanglements, 4/5. Gain +2 scrutiny to a domain. I see. So, the Knight's domain has attracted scrutiny from SI eyes. Second Inquisition eyes. So yes, seeing as there's plenty of new players, scrutiny, this little box out here, is a value out of 8. Essentially that represents, whereas Contempt reflects how the ire of the kindred citizenry, I said it there, I said it, huzzah! Oh, now I'm not going to be able to say either words. That thing, the people, the kindred, how they view the Knights. Scrutiny essentially reflects how the Second Inquisition are hunting and always looking out for kindred to strike them in daylight and bring their beatless hearts to final dust and bring them to an end. So instead of a faction as a whole, because there's not much way for the SI to monitor specific factions of kindred, scrutiny is instead, SI attention is measured by domain itself. So activities at domain have different values of scrutiny different values of attention given to it by the SI. And entanglements is one of the ways that scrutiny can increase. So +2 scrutiny. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 locations on the map that are controlled by the knights. And every turn this happens, and I forget how to roll a d7. It is /R, or is it r/? Let me double check, because I have it in my notes somewhere. Because this keeps coming up. Apparently 7 is an awful thing. I'm competent, I swear. Yeah, we go. R/R, 1D, 1D7. I imagine Emmer has already posted in the chat. Yep, there he is. He's posted in the chat. I got it from my notes, Emmer. I was independent. Now, just so I know which number represents what, we'll go from like top left to bottom right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, just so. 1! It's at the lineage. I see. Gains 2 scrutiny. So it moves up from 4 out of 8 to 6 out of 8. Okay. Okay then. Lineage, although being an aptly named domain for the knights, considering their nightly obsession over lineage, is in fact a kind of like a cool storage location. It's a company basically owning cool storage, if you were curious. And it's currently getting a couple eyes of the SI looking at it. Moving on to people who deal with maybe a different SI. If you've been reading particular scenes, you may understand what that's referring to. Speaking of SI, we have the group, who have also performed plenty of assists this turn. They have long-term project ticks as their passives, which means they go into this clock. Completing this clock, in fact, is the Investigate Synergy International. That is the other SI that we are referring to. A mortal business that recently approached William Cahill of the group and asked them to do a job for them. And William has done the job, of course, but has also wanted to work out more about them and figure out who exactly it is that he is doing this work for. And that is what this 10-tick clock has represented and is now completed. So after this stream, I will be providing the group some juicy information as to what they have uncovered. Speaking of juicy information, the group has provided us with a lovely written narrative, which I should probably read out to you. William Cahill, leader of the group, knows a thing or two about charm. He takes a little time to lock in on what language game the Marks wants to play, and from there he knows what he will do with his words, whatever that may be. Perhaps it's disarming a verbal attack from Basil, the custodian's leader, or maybe it's inspiring young disenfranchised kindred in Chinatown. And one of William's favourites, maybe his words could jab a real pointy stick in the ribs of Vinnick, the Herald. Lately, however, his actions have needed to do the talking, as his team wraps up a research project on the shady Synergy International. He needs to pick his actions carefully. He needs friends, allies, people with skin in the game so he can feel protected. It's like he said to the young leader of the Patriots, Amber. There are only allies and viable targets, so he surrounds himself with a network, praying the crosshairs don't land on him before he can save Boston from itself. Spicy, spicy. So their first action, of course, was to implement the many offices and gorgeous view of Hancock Tower and provide the Redcoats with an assist, granting them a coin and an additional free coin that the domain provides. And then it was also to assist the Gemini League and provide them. The group has done a lot of work and created a lovely new network of allies between himself, the Redcoats, and the Gemini League. But that is not all. For the group are going to spend one of their major boons to perform an additional third action. For you new players, usually in the game, factions can only perform 2 actions. But you can perform actions, more additional actions outside of those 2, by perhaps obtaining a cohort and having your cohort perform tasks for you. Or it is using boons. And boons in the mechanical sense of this game are things that can be traded between factions to be done for little favors to be done, much like boons are used in the Kindred RP game, in the narrative world of the setting. But they provide additional actions that can be performed one-off. So you can spend a boon to perform a one-off action, and in this case, the group are doing something quite dastardly. For they are performing a claim domain action on Pin Street Inn. Yes, Pin Street Inn. That will be a shock to a couple of you, because it is the final month of what has been the lockdown of Chinatown. Chinatown, the neighborhood, oh, that's Charleston, the wrong town. Chinatown, the neighborhood, was recently under, let's say, particular interest by First Light for the Knights up in the north. The Knights performed a bit of voluntary initiative and police work in murdering and executing a First Light agent in combat zone. And if you will excuse me for a minute, I will just quickly bring up the spring 2025 bill. For this was the previous bill that was then drafted up in response, as the prince asked her city congress and the Primogen Council, because she already had locked down the combat zone domain, but she was asking whether she was considering the action of locking down the entire Chinatown neighborhood, and that bill passed. So the Chinatown neighborhood was completely locked down, and that lockdown is still in effect for the remainder of this month, for the next 5 days. This bill, that lockdown is supposed to still be in effect. So as you can see, if passed, until the next congressional turn, which is next turn, the turn after this turn that you are currently watching, all player factions, when performing actions targeting Chinatown domains, gain +2 contempt, but may also add 1 tick to the targeted clock. The idea being that there is no competition in Chinatown, for the lockdown is keeping all kindred out by law. So no one is there to get in your way. But of course you are going to gain the ire of kindred elsewhere for breaking a lockdown that not only are you breaking a lockdown, but you are breaking a lockdown that a Congress that you are a part of voted into. So, the group is spending their major boon to perform the claim domain action on Pine Street Inn here. They will have, of course, the bonus tick. It is a 4-tick clock, seeing as it is right next to their domain. It is a single link away. And they are getting their automatic tick. Their automatic tick, because there's no competition, as the bill provides them. But they also gain 2 contempt. So, usually what you would do for the claim domain action is roll tier, which would be 1 dice, because it is only 1. But because the boons are special, depending on the value of the boon, be it trivial, minor, or major, that's what determines how many dice rolls. That's how a boon has increased value over other boons. And because this is a major boon, that means we are rolling 3 whole dice. They only need 3 ticks here. So that means they need to roll just at least 1 6. So let's see how they do. They roll a 4. They roll a 4. So that is 2 ticks. And they are 1 tick away. 1 tick away. Ah, you're welcome. You're welcome, hug and kiss from the group. You're welcome. 1 tick away. And then they will have Pine Street Inn. Yes, they are just 5 days early from breaking the lockdown. And they have... Oh, you use coin to improve. Let me double check. Let me double check the Discord. Thank you for reminding me. I use coin. You did indeed. Okay. Thank you for reminding me. So, one thing that you can do in this game is once per turn you can spend 2 coin to add a die to one of your actions. So we will spend that 2 coin and roll an additional die. Fingers crossed. It's still a 4. Ugh. 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 The dice roll as they may, and 2 ticks is what the group gained. Ugh. My luck isn't always the best, but it could be worse. You could have only gained 1 tick. You could be much, much worse. So, with that very fiery action, consistency is key. Consistency is key. You got consistent 4s there. We are moving on to your entanglements. Not a full reroll? No, because it is a case of it's an additional die, all you have to do is roll the additional die to get the total dice that you rolled, because you pick whichever number is the highest number. It's not necessary that the amount of dice rolled doesn't necessarily affect the values that those dice roll out to. Because otherwise, if you rolled a 6 and then I didn't roll the right amount, I would be robbing you of a 6. So, entanglements. We are at the 6 contempt bracket. So we are at the highest possible contempt bracket. Let's see what occurs. Gain 2 contempt and +1 harm to a cohort. Fortunately, you have no cohort, but we are ever so close to filling up the contempt bar and thus gaining a shunned level. To cut it short, shunned level basically affects how effective you are. You're shunned ever so slightly by Kindred Society, so it's a little bit harder for other Kindred factions to assist you. And that is the end of the group turn. A very spicy, very risky turn that didn't completely pay off. Not completely, but they are one tick away. They are guaranteed, if they perform the action, to acquire that domain. They made significant progress And the amount of allies they have obtained this turn is impressive. And thus, we move on to the custodians, who gain 1 coin and 1 XP. Don't have a narrative for them, but they are very busy this turn. Very, very busy this turn. For action 1 is to sway Primogen Hilda. You're forsaken me, JJ. I apologize. Sometimes the dice roll good, sometimes the dice roll bad, and I promise you that my desire is that they roll good. Contempt is crazy high across the board. People, the kindred population are like pissed off at you guys. Except maybe the knights, but they're at a 4 out of 9. The kindred are like fed up with these coteries with special privilege. The special privilege, they get to vote and we don't. What the heck is this? But speaking of votes, the custodians are going to do an action that's not quite often being performed, and that is a sway Primogen action. In this game, there are, of course, the Primogen Council. And you will notice little bishop icons on the map. Those represent the domains of the various Primogen. And the Primogen have are a whole other set of 6 votes that get considered in the bills that happen quarterly each year. So mechanically, the player factions can use the sway Primogen action to sway over Primogen, sway over these NPC votes to vote in favor of their policies. That's how we reflect in mechanics the art of politics with NPC players and actors in this field. Now, the sway Primogen action is a social one. So we are going to click the sway Primogen. Because the custodians have 2 social, they are rolling 2 dice. And because, looking at the ethos math tables, because the custodians are targeting Hilda McAndrews, the Toreador Primogen, and based on their ethos scale, I don't have the overlapping one, but using a set of math calculations to calculate the size of these clocks, because basically the idea is the closer aligned you are to a Primogen, the easier it is that easier time you have as a faction to convince them over. And the custodians are targeting Hilda McAndrews, which they have an alignment of 3, which means they have a 3-tick clock, a tiny clock. So all they need is 3 ticks. Let us see. They aren't spending any coin. They are rolling social, which is 2 dice. They rolled a 6, and out of the gate, that is all they needed. I'll create the clock. Sway Primogen. Hilda McAndrews. Because I can only do even numbers, so that's a 3-tick clock. They rolled a 6 out of the gate. Hilda McAndrews is this game's first Primogen to have been swayed over by a coterie. So that means we go over here, and we go to the lovely little option here. Oop, it's having a little load. Let the game, let Kiwi Raps load. And now we can see on the map, Hilda McAndrews have been swayed by the custodians. So what does that mean? What does that mean? Apart from an additional vote that they now have control over in voting on advisory bills, this domain essentially counts as controlled by the custodians. So they can use that to measure distance in order to perform actions from. And they also get access to whatever the Primogen ability is. And it's unique for each Primogen. For instance, Hilda McAndrews' case, it's Artist of the Story. It grants access to a unique action, Change the Narrative, which means they can spend 6 rep and reduce their scrutiny level by 1. Now, that is the way you would reduce scrutiny in this game, and it is the only way you can reduce scrutiny. So it is a very powerful ability, and the custodians have secured it. And that is only their first action. For their second action is, and I'm going to double check. I'm going to double check that it is this action. I'm having a moment of doubt and I want to get this right. It is reduce. It is reduce contempt. Yes, I see. I did have to check. I did have to correct what I had in my notes. It is reduce contempt, which is not a bad move at all. For their contempt is up there for sure. It is very, very, very hard. No need to use the boon now. Indeed, no need to use the boon now. I will note that for when it comes to it. So, they have 2. They are doing very social actions because in order to convince the kindred populace that you're not so bad, you need to be good at social acts. And they are spending 2 coin to boost it, I'm pretty sure. Yep, they're spending 2 coin to boost it. So that is 3 dice they are rolling in total. And that is a 4, which means, just so I can check, I might as well check so the new players as well can see it. When you are reducing scrutiny, a 4 or a 5 is 2. So that is 2 contempt being reduced. And their cohort action. Yes, the custodians have a cohort. This is another way that you can do a third action. Their third action is to perform a claim domain action. So, how do cohorts work? Basically, cohorts work by you spending 1 coin, and they are limited to 2 particular actions that they can do. For instance, this Cambridge Easy Living Real Estate cohort, this like real estate lawyer group that the custodians have in their pocket, can claim domain or they can reduce scrutiny, and in this case they are claiming domain. Typically for claim domain action you would roll tier, but again for cohorts, same way that in boons you roll the value of a boon, for cohorts you roll the value of the cohort. And cohorts roll whatever your tier value is, unless of course they have the elite key, which means they roll an additional die. Normally you would only spend the 1 coin, which we just did for the custodians, but because in a previous turn the cohort got injured and they are weak, that means that the cohort cost 2 coin. 2 coins in total to use. So that's an additional coin being spent. So let us roll. And they roll a 4. For they are claiming, I didn't even tell you what domain they are claiming. They are performing the claim domain action at the Club Passum in Cambridge. So Club Passum. claim domain action. And that is going to be a 4-tick clock, because it is only one distance away. And that is 2 ticks. For a 4 or a 5 is 2 ticks. So they are halfway there to the claim domain action. And they were going to spend a trivial boon this turn. But I've been pinged both in chat and in Discord by the custodians to no longer have the desire to spend that boon. So we come to the close of this faction's turn, which means we must measure their contempt, which we are at 6 contempt, which means we're in the contempt 6+ entanglements bracket. Gain 2 contempt and +1 harm to a cohort. Oh. So now the cohort is impaired. They gain 2 contempt. Thank goodness that they reduced contempt, otherwise they would have gone up a shunt level. But now they have a cohort which is not only weak but impaired. So they might want to look at restoring this cohort, spending the time and healing them up, because they are not looking good. We move on to the Patriots, everyone's favorite totally not anarchs. They gain 1 rep, filling their rep bar. Interesting. And they gain 1 XP. Very close to filling their XP bar. And they have written a lovely set of narrative. A fair bit of narrative for us. So, their first action. And this is the narrative associated with that. After the mess of the last owners has been cleaned up by Weaver, finally the last deals are made for the new owners. Amber doesn't just want to secure a blood trade for the different feeding troves, but also wants to keep the hospital running smoothly, since it is important to keep the population healthy. They are performing the claim domain action on the Massachusetts General Hospital, a 4-tick clock that they had started earlier. They have already 3 ticks, but as we do here, even if it is guaranteed, there is no way they could not complete this clock, because they only require 1 tick. We make the roll, because I have a habit of rolling 6s when I don't need to. So let us see if that is the case. Oh, a 1! Never mind. You got a bad roll out of the way, and it's exactly what you needed it to. So now, the Massachusetts General Hospital is under the domain, the purview of the Patriots. And that is another tick for their open for business faction objective. For the faction objective of the Patriots, one of the faction objectives, open for business, is to control at least 1 domain in 6 separate neighborhoods. I'll read the narrative here especially for the new players who may not know what this is all about. Feeding troughs and the Worcester contract is the way forward for Kindred society. The grand majority of Kindred will fervently resist the policy that we allocate for. Their selfish and brash feeding brings risk to the rest of us. But what they struggle to deny is overwhelming evidence that our concept works. We need to obtain domain throughout Boston, and then, through the fullest extent of the second tradition, implement the Worcester contract and establish feeding troughs to provide safe and secluded feeding grounds. The results will speak for our cause all on their own. Yes, the Patriots follow a unique set of rules known as the Worcester contract, which one of the stipulants of the Worcester contract is that no feeding will take place outdoors. All feeding will take place either within the walls of one's own haven/domain, or within the walls of a feeding trough. For the Patriots, are, as you will see here on the heedless prudent, that third one from the top, incredibly prudent when it comes to the masquerade. And part of their way of reflecting that, and part of their way of saying how we need to keep the masquerade, they think that the feeding trusts are the way forward. So, in order to complete the faction objective open for business, they have to have domains across the neighborhoods. In 6 different neighborhoods do they need domain. And currently they have 5 out of 6. They have domain in Southend, they have domain in Fenway, they have 2 domain in Cambridge, same as they have 2 domain in Southend. They have domain in Back Bay, and now they have domain in Beacon Hill. So let's move on to their second action, which they have also written a bit of narrative for. As hinted in the Boston Common Park, the Patriots made big plans to clean up the smoldering problems in the city. It may not be the only place that needs assistance, but it shall be proof of the capabilities of the prudent faction. Despite going against the bill, they will need indeed change the China district for the better and make the combat zone stop. So, as you can hear, the group are not the only faction going to break the lockdown at the last second. The Patriots are also having a go in the last month, in the last 5 days, just before the lockdown ends. They're going to jump ahead everyone else and go and claim domain in the combat zone. So let us quickly do combat zone, claim domain, and let me measure out how far away this domain is. So that is 1 distance away, 2 distance away, 3 distance away. They are 3 links away from Patriot's domain. The combat zone is 3 links away from Patriot domain, which means 3 links away. I believe that makes it a 6-tick clock if we are looking at domain. No, we are looking at clock-based actions. Yeah. To do 1 link away, 3 links away, 6-tick clock. So we are dealing with a 6-tick clock. Masquerade breaches. No, the masquerade important. No brekkie hypocrites. Yeah, indeed. Well, interesting. The Chinatown lockdown was indeed instituted for the masquerade, in the name of the masquerade, and it's interesting how the Patriots are breaking that very lockdown. Might be why the bill gained some contempt, and because the 2 contempt that the bill provides for doing this action in the combat zone grants them the first shunned level of our game. But thankfully, because of the lack of competition, they get a tick automatically, thanks to the bill's effects. And they now are going to roll tier plus the 1 die assistance from the knights that they got. Not the knights, my apologies, not the knights, but the Boston Camarilla, that the knights managed to agree that the Boston Camarilla would assist the Patriots on the knights' behalf. So perhaps Silas, this is how maybe I'm going to interpret this. Perhaps Silas approached the prince and asked on behalf of the knights, on behalf of the Patriots, for the Patriots to have a little bit of an exception to the lockdown. And maybe maybe this is very silently, very quietly accepted by the prince. And thus the extra bonus die. Let's see. Okay. Everyone cross your fingers. We want big rolls. I would love to see big rolls. Let's get big rolls. Knock my wood. Knock the wood on my table here. The wood I've got here. Knock that wood. That's a 6. That is a 6. So that is 3 ticks. That is plus the 1 tick that they got from the bill. That is 4 ticks. Too bad it is their second action. Psych! They are also going to spend a boon. It is a bit crazy to perform another claim domain action. Again, because it is a separate action, they gain an additional 2 contempt. But they also gain an additional tick. It is a trivial boon, so it's only 1 die. And because we like rolling die here, even if the outcome is guaranteed. Let's see. That's a 5. That would have been 2 ticks, but we only needed 1. Holy cow. The Patriots have pulled off a dramatic move. A dramatic move. Breaking the lockdown in a very flashy and overt manner. A formal decree. Not only was it laid down by the prince, but it was also voted on by the Patriots. The Patriots, if you look at the State of Boston, I think that's what the channel is called, you will find there who voted what on that bill. The Patriots voted in favor of the lockdown. Now, the group do have the fact that they voted against the lockdown. As far as I'm aware, I'm going to double check because I may be eating my words here. Yes, the group voted against that lockdown. So at least they're not being, they're not going against their own votes in their actions this month. But indeed, the Patriots did vote in favor for the lockdown. Yet still, they broke it at in the last minute, in the final seconds, in the final hours, in the 5 days before that lockdown was lifted. They couldn't wait. They jumped the gun. But not only has the Patriots just acquired 2 domains, as we noted earlier with the Patriots and their faction objective, they need 6 separate domains in 6 separate neighborhoods. What did they just acquire? Correct. We have our first faction objective completed. The feeding troughs are now open for business. For the Patriots have domain in 6 separate neighborhoods, thus completing their faction objective. It is one hell of a turn for new players to see as their first turn, for we're seeing a faction objective having been complete, which means next turn the Patriots get to choose 2 of these special actions to perform, and these are powerful actions. What will the Patriots do with their newfound power? A bold move made, but it's definitely in many ways been pulled off their goals and their objectives. So we're going to roll entanglements. They are at shunned level 1. They've paid the price for their bold moves, but they're only at contempt 2, so the very first bracket. And they gain 1 contempt. Fitting. I think the Patriots are going to have a lot to answer for. Maybe not necessarily from the prince. The Silas did put a good word in, but there are your colleagues and your fellow kindred citizenry who now shun the Patriots for what they have done. And that brings a close to the Patriots' actions. We are moving on to the Gemini League, who are also known for bold actions and bold, flashy moves. But this turn, the Gemini League are doing maintenance. They have been in reception a fair bit of assisting and aid from other factions. 3 assists in total, 2 of which are +1 dice. Let us have a nosy. They don't gain +1 coin. I need to take that off because they did. In fact, they were once holder of the Winthrop Yacht Clubs before the scrutiny of that got too high, filled up at 8 and then fell under investigation. So they no longer gain the +1 coin that this domain provides, but they do get their +1 XP. I already have immediately forgotten whether I had added that XP, and just double checking. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, that's right. Only did that once. I did that the correct amount of time. So, their actions. Action 1. Boston has been unkind to the Gemini League, with all the eyes on them and suspicious. With luck, this will change soon. Their first action is to reduce contempt, with aid from the Knights. The Knights are aiding them with their contempt reduction. So they are rolling 1 die, but they are gaining a bonus die from the Knights. So they're rolling 2 dice in total. That's 3. They don't have luck with this. They do not. They do not have luck with this. So that is only going to be Let me double check. Reduce contempt is down here. 1 to 3. They reduce it by 1. Though they do have 2 allies, which means they can trade away this contempt if the other factions agree with it. So they have other means now in the future of dealing with the contempt that they have gained over the months. And we move on to action 2. Oh gosh. I think Maeve is from New York, isn't she? This is a quote from her. And it's in her voice. Oh, I can't do a New York accent. Okay. Well, maybe. I'm walking here. I don't care what kind of curse is on there. Oh. Oh no. I should have referenced Paul. What does he mean by this? I don't care what kind of curse is on there. Bonet? B-O-N-E-T. I will copy and paste this into the thing so you guys can read it for yourself. But that is the latest orders from the Hexer Maeve of the Gemini League. I apologize. Accents and New York isms are not going to be my strong suit. Burn it, potentially. Potentially it's burn it. Reduce scrutiny at the Giovanni building. I don't know about burning it. If it's burn it, if those were the words, I don't know about burning it. They're rolling mental and they also get +1 die from the group's assist. So that is 2 dice from their 2 stat of mental. And an additional dice, totaling in 3 dice in total. That's a 4. So you reduce the Giovanni's scrutiny by 2. Bringing it down to 3 out of 8. And that is the end of the Gemini League's action. There is room for improvement on the accent. Absolutely. I will happily take that criticism. I appreciate that, Nanashi. I appreciate that. Dyslexia, as you will soon learn, means that pronunciation of words and things are not my strong suit. which is great for when I have to read a load of stuff. But I love it. I love trying to read your guys' stuff. Especially the knights, and especially when you make me do accents. 5 contempt, which means we're in the 4/5 contempt bracket, plus 2 scrutiny to a domain. They did reduce the Giovanni building, so the Giovanni building isn't at risk of going into my brain, into investigation. But we have 5 domain. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is /R1D5. I'm pretty sure that's how it works. Not 1S5, right? 1D5. And that is a 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The Dean Winthrop house. I wonder if it's the fact that another kindred has recently arrived at the Dean Winthrop house that has brought this additional attention from the SI. Because that Stephen Tan indeed travelled all the way from Greece. Maybe he wasn't as clean as he may have hoped in his journeys. Huh. Interesting that. And finally, of the player factions, but certainly not least, we have the Redcoats. Oh, the losers of the war, but they may be not convinced that they were on the wrong side of the Six-State War. They gain 1 coin. They're on 3 coin they gain 1 coin from the famous Omni Parker house that they have in their domain. They have a they're all phenomenally written. You all write phenomenal narratives. I'm double checking I've got all the narratives here. Oh, okay. Had a false flag notification in the Redcoats chat there. But yeah. Let us read their narrative. Then I realized something. I was keeping my old wounds fresh and open as evidence for a trial that would never come. A quote by Mark Nepo. Once again, perhaps as a sign of his reverence, Sir Maurice was often seen outside of his haven. There was the occasional meeting, true, but from the comparably noisy opening from the Redcoats, their current passivity seemed very unusual. If anything, with the upcoming bill, the very existence of great success for the Redcoats, one might have expected something like a celebration, or at least a snide comment. Yet they were quiet. Publicly, at least, kindred never slept, and Sir Maurice certainly wasn't wasting time. It was perhaps more than the current difficulties demanded. It was perhaps more than the current difficulties demanded a much gentler touch, and not the endless essays and letters he had taken to write in previously. The coming month was perhaps the most crucial time in recent history for the Redcoats, and a chance at progress. I butchered a couple of those words, but I promise you that my delivery is not a reflection of the excellent writing that you guys do. Their first action has also another little bit of narrative to it. As a consequence of Sir Maurice's brash yet effective attempts at bringing the sheriff question into light, it brought a lot of unwanted hate and distaste towards the Triad Old Guard. Many saw him as just trying to suck up to the ivory tower, chasing after promise of power or position, while others hated his suggestion of sheriff, knowing the additional policing would create many problems for those kindred who had been enjoying the lack of oversight. Whatever their reasons, apologies had to be made. The stakes were too high to let pure publicity ruin everything now. They are reducing contempt and rolling social, as that is the stat associated with it. But they are also spending 2 coin to add 1 die to it. Your grammar is not terrible. Heck, you do a major in English. That's your whole degree. Your grammar is on point. I will not have you not give yourself the credit you deserve. Right. So 3 dice in total. Let us see. How well do I roll? That is a crit. Humphrey has been out there working his butt off and has rolled a crit and spent his coin wisely to give him a crit, and I am very confident that a critical success, indeed 5. The more you learn, the more you realize your mistakes. Oh, okay. What's that in reference to, I wonder? Say what? I know. Since when do I roll crits? Alright, 5 contempt removed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That leaves us with 2 contempt left. Well done. I'm sorry. Say what now? What is Nanashi referring to? Am I pronouncing that right? It is the first time I've had to pronounce your user on stream, so do correct me if I'm pronouncing it wrong. Don't let it be the spark. Start a new fire. Speaking of which, their second action is also reduce contempt, so they're not spending coin on this because they've already done that. You can only get a bonus through coin for once a turn. You rolled above a 3, especially after the pull we had making fun of you for never rolling above a 3. Look at you now. Look at you now. Watch, we're gonna roll again. This is gonna turn into a fire. Watch this. Look, that's a 4. That's exactly the amount you needed. That's 2 contempt. You have no contempt. You have wiped the slate clean. You have removed 7 contempt in a single turn. I think that's the most contempt we've seen removed in a turn through actions without having to go up a shund level like the Patriots did. Holy cow. Yes, take the high 5 from Kazuma. You deserve it too. Holy cow. Bravo. Applause. The crowd is going wild. Absolutely wild. It was a purely maintenance... You nearly got away with no entanglements there. I got caught up with the excitement. It was purely a maintenance turn, but it was a maintenance turn well spent. Because hot damn, you're in the entanglement 0 to 3. Ah, I see. And this is why you have 1 coin remaining. For you are paying coin to the highest level, to the highest status faction, or losing 1 status with that faction. Well, you have the coin, and I think I might know who your highest status faction is. And it is indeed, in fact, the person, the group, the literal group who gave you coin this turn. So apparently that coin may have not been a permanent affair. How does the group do this? How do the group keep getting money off people? Well, at least they gave you 2 coin in total, not just 1. So you have to get 50% back what you owe, what they gave you. Wow, what a turn. What a turn for the player factions alone. What a giddy ant. We have craziness in Chinatown. We have crazy assists going on. We have crazy social talking. There's been a Primogen who's been swayed. And the turn's not over yet, because the best part is coming. The Society of St. Leopold has yet to act. What could they be up to? What could they be up to? Well, the Society of St. Leopold are performing an investigation action on the Winthrop Yacht Club. Indeed, the Winthrop Yacht Club. So we are going to mark on their timer. For the new players, investigations happen when scrutiny hits 8, and when it happens, the domain falls under investigation, a state of investigation. When that occurs, the SI factions get little timer clocks, 4-tick clocks, which translates into basically they have 4 turns in order to complete a 6-tick clock if they want to, which is an investigation clock. Investigation clock. Winthrop Yacht Club. If one of the SI factions are able to complete this 6-tick clock before the timer is done, they gain control of that domain. But it's not quite as simple as solely hoping that the SI roll badly, because the player factions are able, and include not only the player factions, but Kindred factions as a whole, are able to perform the disrupt investigation action, which allows them to remove progress made by SI factions in these clocks. Seeing as there's no progress made yet, because it's the first turn that they get to do this, no one's done that, but we are now going to see how well the Society of St. Leopold does in this investigation. They roll mental for this action. So this is one. The SI have the St. Leopold have a mental stat of 1. They are they spending the coin? No, they're not spending coin for this action. Oh no. Now, see, I am going to re-roll that. No, what I would do is I was meant to click this button. Okay, I'm not going to count that as a dice roll because I clicked the wrong button. I will count that as if I clicked the wrong button. What we would have, okay. Typically, if I roll more dice, what happens is that more dice than I intended to. What happens is that I take whatever the first number of dice is, and I'm gonna continue that policy and stay consistent. I know that's not going to be appealing to. It's not the same amount of dice. Yeah. Okay. It is 3 dice too many. They're meant to be only rolling 1 dice. But we are taking the first dice, which is the 6. So that is 3 ticks. That's the most progress I've seen the SI do on one of these clocks in a long time. We'll move quickly on to their entanglements. Hey, they can roll 6s too. Apparently so. Oh no. They lose shunned level coin or lose sway over a faction Primogen. Well, They can't afford to lose shunned level coin because it's shunned +1, which is 5 coin. There's a reason that means they always lose status as opposed to pay you guys. So let us find out. Lose sway over a Primogen. If non-applicable, use entanglements 4/5 roll 6. So because it's not applicable, SI don't sway Primogen. Let me get the entanglements up. Contempt R5 roll 6. Pay shunned level +1 coin to the lowest status faction or -1 status with that faction. Well, -1 status with the lowest status faction. Who is the lowest status faction with the Society of St. Leopold? Okay, it's either the group, it's either the Custodians, or it's either the Gemini League. Work with the SI? That's called blasphemy. How dare you suggest such heinous acts? We can't be cooperating with the devils or agents. No, we must bring the cross's light upon them. So, I'm rolling a D3 to decide between whether the group, the Custodians, or the Gemini League have -1 status. So it's 1 if the group, 2 the Custodians, 3 the Gemini League. /R 1 D3. It's a 1. It's the group. The group lose 1 status. And remember earlier when I said -2 and -3 means that factions consider each other rivals? That's right. The group and the Society of St. Leopold now see each other as rivals. Basically what that means is a few little minor tweaks to some actions, but the big one is that it means that factions can perform the humiliate rival action on their rivals. Oh no is correct. Oh no. Yeah. An SI faction is now allowed to has a target for humiliate rival. For whatever reason, the group has entered the Society of St. Leopold's radar, and they have eyes for a particular set of kindred. We now move on to not the quite so religiously SI, the more gotta keep control of our own citizenry SI, the First Light. Keep these foreign alien agents, foreign in the term closer resembling a synonym of alien as opposed to other nation agents out of our country. Winthrop, they are also, if I check right, I'm going to make sure I check right, they are competing against the Society of St. Leopold. They don't always work together, these SI. They do not always work together. So in fact, these two SI factions for the first time are actually going to be competing to complete the clock first. So, let us see how well they do. And they are rolling mental. I'm going to click the right button this time. 2 dice. Whereas the Society of St. Leopold has higher physical than First Light, First Light has higher mental than the Society of St. Leopold. Let us see how well First Light do. Nowhere near as well as their as their Catholic associates. Nowhere near as well as the Leopolds. Alright, let us see what their entanglements are. They're at 0 to 3 contempt. They gain 1 contempt. And we are moving on swiftly to the final faction. Everyone's favorite government. Everyone loves this government. Everyone loves this faction. The Boston Camarilla, who gain 2 XP And they have a small vault, so they can go into the vault section of here and an additional coin. Huzzah! Let us read the narrative. The knights are a delicate group to conduct. They're constantly shifting leadership, and the thick soap of a filter negotiations must go through first before the desired result can be attained are merely the overt factors that play into their administration. But Hazel has perhaps more experience than any other outsider could imagine in navigating their unique mindsets. And if it is required to allow some leniency to recent bill votes, so be it. The question is, of course, is Hazel's experience a match for her ambition? Yes, the Boston Camarilla one and only action this turn was to perform the assist action on the Patriots, which resulted and contributed to the bombastic display we had today. So thank you, Boston Camarilla, and thank you to the Knights for taking some of their contempt in return for doing that. Speaking of contempt, the entanglement bracket is 0 to 3 for the Boston Camarilla. And they are pay 1. They have the coin to do it, so someone's getting coin. But pay 1 shun level to the highest satisfaction. Or -1. Oh my gosh, they're the Knights are going to get coin from the Boston Camarilla. Not only are the Boston Camarilla doing actions on behest of the Knights, but they are also providing them and repaying them for their coin. There you go. Phenomenal. Oh, and I didn't mention it, but I will clarify for the new players. NPC factions only have 1 action per turn, whereas 1 base action per turn, as opposed to the player factions who have 2 base actions per turn. That the number of those actions that NPC factions can increase if a scenario, a game event, affects it, but currently that is not occurring. For we are coming to the end of this turn, this crazy turn. We had SI hacking my music. We had breaches in the lockdown. We had crazy social roles. It was something. And now I get to tell you what the turn events, though you had a little sneak peek if you were in the stream waiting for the stream early enough. Now let us see. We have, for turn 11, as I pull it up, you guys are already seeing it. I'm pulling up a version that I can actually read and isn't just a tiny thumbnail on my display screen. We have, for turn 11, events. I believe it is a masquerade breach. No. A decree enforcement event occurring at Rivermark Apartments. A mortal crime event occurring at the Boston Harbor. Another mortal crime event occurring at the War Memorial Recreation Center. A kindred dispute event occurring at the SES Burial Grounds. A kindred dispute occurring at Sunco Logistics. And a cult curiosity occurring at the Spalding Rehabilitation Hospital. Another occult curiosity occurring at Brick Bottom Loft and Studios. A Boston crime event occurring at the Cambridge Pizzeria. Oh God. And another occult curiosity occurring at none other than Fort Independence. And because no one resolved any events, I will let the newcomers know. These little green tokens, these little green flags, those are events. And 9 events spawn every turn. And they are little events that can be resolved by factions to get them little resource bonuses or to complete objectives. one important thing, though, to note is that if an event is not resolved, it increases the scrutiny of that domain by 1. It is another way in which scrutiny gets increased. And because no faction chose to resolve any events this turn, it means that all 9 of those domains have the little thing will have their scrutiny increased by 1. And on that cheery note, I look forward to catching up with you guys in Elysium on the Discord. I look forward to seeing all the new RP from the 4 new players and the current players that we got. I look forward to the characters that get decided and created by the new players that have joined but not yet ascribed to a faction. And I look forward to next month seeing how this bill, this advisory bill, all the negotiations, all the lobbying that has taken place, all the assists that have been given in return for particular deals and arrangements being made. Oh boy. Oh boy. It's looking to be an interesting, an exciting month to follow after this exciting turn. Hope you guys have a wonderful evening. Have a fabulous month. I will see you here at this YouTube channel in a month's time on the next final Sunday of June, which is in fact the 29th of June. But I will probably see you earlier over on the Discord. Until then, have a lovely day. And do stay safe in those nights.